Great. Well, thank you, Courtney. We're going to wrap up our last segment with the power of media. And we're going to talk to Monique and Shauna, and they're going to share some of their tips. But I think when we talk about media, we're really talking about all kinds of media: social media, print media, television, blogs, internet, community newsletters, really anything we can think of. So Monique, you're back on tap for this one, and we're going to start with you. You've been very successful with getting the message out about lupus. You're a community ambassador here in New York City. You were part of our No Lupus campaign, but you use a lot of interesting platforms to speak, and you participate in all different kinds of media. So when you promote your team or when you promote the walk, do you want to talk about your philosophy?
Sure. I will say I'm not the most active person on social media, but I like to be deliberate. Like Shauna, I do like to use LinkedIn, coming from that corporate background in HR. I like to speak to the audience of people. Specifically, if I'm talking to HR people, I like to speak to them on that sort of level. If I'm on Instagram, I like to use pictures, captions, hashtags are really, really important that I know people can find and that people can search. I think consistency is what's important, especially on Instagram and those hashtags. On Twitter, I like to even keep it succinct and active wherever it is that I am. I've even been tweeting while we've been doing this. I've been tweeting out some of the things that everyone has been saying and just some of the quick quips, because sometimes the same people that I have on Twitter are not on Instagram. And so I'm learning my audiences, and just get to know the audiences that you have and get to switch it up with them, have fun with them. This walk is about a fun time, and it is about bringing energy to this idea of lupus, as horrendous as it is. So we want to make sure that people are not put off by when they see our social media platform. We want to make sure that it's constantly engaging them. One way that I found to do that is with my dog's account, which I created as a lupus awareness support pup. And I actually speak in his voice on his account, and believe it or not, people actually donate to his page in greater proportions sometimes than they do my other team walkers. And I do events sometimes where I go to the dog run and I meet with some of the other pet owners. For some reason, people are really engaged with pet accounts. So if you have a pet and you feel comfortable, feel free to go ahead. They just love it. Post lupus facts, post things that are going on during Lupus Awareness Month. You don't have to get too personal on your pet page. Just keep it fun and lighthearted, but just keep it informative. That's one of the things that's really important with social media. If you're doing events, keep people engaged about what the Lupus Foundation of America is doing. I also like to do giveaways. So as I'm posting each week or each day about what's happening with the walk, where I am, where my goal is, I might do a contest for that week on, and that way your followers are constantly trying to figure out what is it that I can do to help. Have them repost, have them share, have them be a part of the process so that they feel like they're also helping you in winning, and getting ahead, because everyone wants to feel like they're helping someone who's not well get better.
Great. Well, thank you, Monique. And Shauna, I'd love for you to share. You did something very creative with your daughter and with your social media.
Absolutely. So similarly, I usually make some fun out of my posts and some giveaways, if you will, or drawings. And a few years in a row now, I have raffled off to somebody who donated by putting their names in a hat and taking live video while I'm, shuffling up the names and pulling one out. And the first year that we did that, we gave away a painting of my husband's. He is a painter. And that was a really fun thing. And when we came up to it this year, I realized my daughter, who's very young but pretty talented, got her dad's genes and not mine, we would send everybody who donated a drawing from my daughter. While it has taken her quite a bit of time because she is only 7 and we're not all the way through the list, we have been able to chip away at an original drawing from her with a thank you card to each person who's donated to us.
Well, that's fantastic. And, You've also done some other creative posts using social media specifically. Do you want to share those?
Absolutely. So I noted at the beginning that I generally start my campaign with maybe a longer post that essentially says why I walk, talks a little bit about my road to diagnosis and it being a pretty arduous path, and then the development after my daughter was born of some of her symptoms and some of the diagnostic things that have been happening in her world to kind of ground people to the personal aspect. And then I will do daily. I will repost every single day. I always have a caveat that people can start hiding my feeds if they don't want to see it, but that I will be posting every day until I get to my target. I also post some of the Lupus Foundation of America facts as they're coming out and when they're aligned to my giving month that I'm trying to raise funds, and essentially just find ways to engage people through social media, mostly through Facebook is the avenue when I'm not trying to get people on the corporate side to give. It's mostly through Facebook.
Well, and I think that's key, is knowing really what your network uses and how they'll best respond. Switching gears a little, Monique, let's talk a little bit about traditional media. I know that you've been interviewed by News 12 in Brooklyn, here in New York City. There's also a lot of power in just garnering your own support. And I know through your partnership with the state senator, Kevin Parker, you were able to get him to join your team. They posted out, you know, part of your story, shared your social media, but they used email to show support. You've spoken at different places and had your story shared in the newspaper on some blogs. Can you talk about, you know, how to go about getting your own media and, you know, the power of even writing a letter to the editor or sharing your story in your local media context, whether it's the Patch or another local paper?
Right. Honestly, I would say just do it. We sometimes think that they're not going to respond to our messages. I actually reached out to Senator Parker via Twitter, and one of his assistants replied back to me that afternoon. I've reached out to people on their blogs or like Essence Magazine, whether it's online or through Instagram or Twitter, and they've contacted me. And I know, you know, like Monica, you know about the Rachel Ray show. We've kind of been going back and forth about trying to figure this out. But I reached out to them maybe like 3 years ago, and I think it's just a matter of making that initial contact. With marketing, once you make the contact, you have to keep the follow-up going. And they're never going to know if you don't put out the phone call or the email and then follow back up with it. Any friends of mine that I have that happen to be in media, I'm constantly in their ear to figure out who is it that I can talk to or network with so that we can kind of get things to another platform. And if it's not me, then, you know, if it's a matter of pitching it to someone else, I think it's just a matter of figuring out what's the level of exposure that you're comfortable with. If you're not the person that likes to be out front, then can you write the article? Or maybe if it's still picture that you're great with, you know, then see about all forms of media, podcasts. Some people are really great with blogs, and those are doing great today as well. So see yourself just trying to be as creative as possible, but the thing is, make sure you're making those contacts. Don't just hit like on Instagram or on Facebook. Actually make contact with them and follow up with these people, because you never know that they might actually follow back up with you. You might get a hit. And I think that's probably the best way about going about it.
Thank you, Monique. And Shauna, I think the two of you really highlight the fact that it's all about personal stories and personal connection. And one of the things nowadays is just local papers don't have the staff that they used to, and they're looking for those feel-good stories. So, you know, it never hurts to write a letter to the editor, to submit your own story, whether it's through traditional media or through a blog or something else, or just posting something on social media. We actually put together a toolkit this year. It's a media guide. So at the end of this presentation, we will send this media guide to everyone on the call and everyone who signed up so that they have it. But it's also available on the WALK website. There'll be templates that you can use to really make your story personal and be prepared to make an ask to a local media outlet. You can leverage your network. Alumni newsletters are a great source. They're always looking for news about their graduates, and they want to tout the great things that you're doing. Membership organizations, if you belong to a chamber, a Rotary, the Kiwanis Club, they're all great places to leverage their newsletters, their articles, and any information that they're putting out to their community. Community bulletins, your church may have a newsletter. And again, social media. It's all about social media, and we don't know why people respond to certain things and not to others, but it's so interesting to me when something goes viral and